Hey guys, Sean here. Today I'll be profiling my new and improved Ancient Gear deck. So Ancient Gear has got new support in Legacy of Destruction. It's actually insanely good support. I'm very excited to show off the deck. Ancient Gears are actually a decent rogue deck now. So let's get right into it. So we'll begin with 2 copies of Ancient Gear Dark Golem and 1 copy of the original Ancient Gear Golem. So Ancient Gear Golem is one of the new support cards from Legacy of Destruction. It is very good in the deck. It counts as Ancient Gear Golem while on the field and in the graveyard. It can be special summoned unlike the original Ancient Gear Golem. When it's special summoned, you can add up to 2 Geartown or Ancient Gear cards from your deck to your hand, and then you discard 1. So an insanely strong card, basically a +2. The discard can come up as well with cards like Catapult. Being counted as Ancient Gear Golem is very important as well for cards like your Ancient Gear Commander and even your Ancient Gear Fusion. So this card is essentially a 1-card Chaos Ancient Gear Giant. 2 copies is very good. We have to run the original Ancient Gear Golem as well, because we run Commander. Commander needs the original Ancient Gear Golem. I think some builds can ditch Commander and Golem altogether, but for this build I like to have this ratio right here. Next up, 3 copies of Ancient Gear Wyvern. The main searcher of the deck searches you any Ancient Gear card. This is your new 1-card starter because you can search your new Ancient Gear Advance, but it can also search you any Ancient Gear card, so 3 copies is essential. Next up, 2 copies of Ancient Gear Frame. Not as important as it used to be. You can discard 1 card to add an Ancient Gear Golem or a spell trap that mentions Ancient Gear Golem. So you can add Ancient Gear Fusion, Ancient Gear Advance, or Ancient Gear Duel. So it can work as a combo starter. You do have to discard a card though, so it's not as good as Wyvern. But 2 copies is very nice. Discarding can be useful. And Wyvern and Frame are level 4, which can come up for Xyz plays, so 2 copies is alright. Next up, 1 copy of Ancient Gear Box. If this is added from your deck to your hand, you can add an Earth Machine with 500 attack or defense from your deck to your hand. So this can search you your Ancient Gear Frame, it can search you your Ancient Gear Commander. Not 100% necessary in this build, but I do like it because it gives you a lot of resources, so a good card to have in the deck. Next up, another new card, Ancient Gear Tanker. So when it's normally special summoned, you can special summon an Ancient Gear monster from your hand or graveyard, also ignoring its summoning conditions, so you can get out stuff like your original Ancient Gear Golem. Also, when it's on the field, you can target 1 card you control, destroy it, and all your monsters gain 600 attack. So Tanker can pop something like a Geartown, boost all your Ancient Gear monsters, and then trigger Geartown. So a fantastic card to have. 3 copies is a must. Next up, 2 copies of Ancient Gear Commander. Some people like to call this the circular of Ancient Gears. I don't think it's that good, but it is pretty good in the deck. You can send 1 Ancient Gear Golem from your hand or deck to the graveyard to immediately after normal summon an Ancient Gear monster. This needs to be the original Ancient Gear Golem, so that's why we have 1 copy in the deck. Also, if you normally special summon an Ancient Gear Golem, you can special summon an Ancient Gear Golem from your hand or graveyard, ignoring summoning conditions. So I can get you 2 level 8s on field very easily. And one of the main uses of Commander is that if it's in the graveyard, you can banish it to activate an Ancient Gear spell trap from your hand. This will be used to activate your new Ancient Gear Duel, which is a continuous trap, which is very strong. So 2 copies is very good. Next up, 1 copy of Gizmek Taniguku. This is mainly used as an urgent schedule target. If it's in the graveyard, you can banish it to special summon a machine monster from your graveyard with attack equal to its defense. Ancient Gear Dark Golem has equal attack and defense, so does your Ancient Gear Tanker, so this can bring those back from the graveyard. It also has a summon effect where you can place a machine monster with equal attack and defense on the top of your deck, which can come up in certain situations because of your Ancient Gear Advance, which can let you draw a card. So 1 copy is very good for your urgent schedule alone, and I definitely like this little engine here. And finally, for the monsters, we have triple Jizukiru, the Kaiju. It's just a good Kaiju, it's a machine, it can attack under urgent schedule. You can run this in the side, but I really like it in the main because it's a way to get rid of your opponent's monsters without taking them off the field entirely. So if you want to resolve a lot of your Ancient Gear effects or your urgent schedule, you need your opponent to have a monster. So this will remove your opponent's monster and give them a new one, so that cards like Urgent Schedule are always online. Onto the spells now. Triple Ancient Gear Fortress. I don't have them, but this is the definite must. You definitely need 3 Ancient Gear Fortress. I do believe this is getting reprinted in a future set because it has been reprinted in the OCG. But 3 copies of Ancient Gear Fortress is very similar to the new TY-PHON spell where it protects your monsters. What it does is, the turn your Ancient Gear monsters are normally special summoned, your opponent cannot target them or destroy them with card effects. Also, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to the activation of your Ancient Gear cards or effects. And finally, if it's destroyed by card effect, you can special summon an Ancient Gear monster from your hand or grave. The last effect doesn't come up too much because that does lock you into Gear monsters, but the first two effects are insane. If this card resolves, you're going to basically win the duel, and at the very least it does bait something because your opponent has to respond to this. So 3 copies, essential. If you have it in your opening hand, it's fantastic. If you can search it off of Wyvern, it's great. So 3 copies is essential. Next up, triple Ancient Gear Advance, the new continuous spell for the deck. Searches you any Ancient Gear spell trap. So this is a 1-card starter because it can search you your Ancient Gear Catapult, which can be used to pop Advance to special summon any Ancient Gear monster from your deck. It also has the effect where you can tribute a monster you control to draw a card, which is great for clearing your board because if you want to use Catapult, you need no monsters on the field. So you can normal summon Wyvern, search Advance, and then get rid of Wyvern on the field so you can activate something like a Catapult. And as a bonus, after you use that draw effect, you can normal summon a level 5 or higher Ancient Gear that mentions Ancient Gear Golem without tributing. So fantastic card in the deck, probably the best new card that Ancient Gears have gotten, so 3 copies is a must. Next up, triple Ancient Gear Catapult. If you control no monsters, you can target a card you control and destroy it, and then special summon an Ancient Gear monster from your deck, ignoring summoning conditions. So this can bring out any of your Ancient Gear cards. You can also pop something like a Geartown, so you can summon 2 Ancient Gear monsters. It has another effect where if it's in the graveyard, you can banish it to target a card you control, destroy it, and then you get a token. So fantastic card. It's so much better now with Ancient Gear Advance, so you can clear your board more easily. Next up, triple Geartown. When it's destroyed by card effect, you can special summon an Ancient Gear monster from your hand, deck, or grave. In combination with your Catapult, you can do crazy combos. However, this is an old card, so it can miss timing. So this needs to be destroyed at Chainlink 1. Doesn't really come up in this deck, but it is something you should keep in mind. So 3 copies is very good. We don't run Terraforming, but I don't think we need it because the new Ancient Gear Dark Golem can actually search this. Next up, 1 copy of Ancient Gear Fusion. 1 copy is enough because it's very easy to search. And once we activate this, we are going for game. We can fusion summon an Ancient Gear Fusion monster using monsters we control or in our hand. And if we control Ancient Gear Golem, we can use fusion material from the deck as well. So a fantastic card. Now with Ancient Gear Dark Golem, we can just search this and then have an Ancient Gear Golem on the field so we can go into any of our fusion monsters. Specifically, Chaos Ancient Gear Giant is probably your best bet. So 1 copy is good, 2 copies can work, but I think 1 copy is very good. Next up, triple Urgent Schedule. A lot of people run this at 2. I don't know why, because it's a fantastic card. This is a blind going second deck, and this card is insane for going second. You always want to see this in your hand. It lets you special summon 1 level 4 or lower and 1 level 5 or higher Earth Machine from your deck, but you negate their effects. So what you can do is summon 2 monsters and then immediately go into a link, so you can link into your Ballista. And since we run the Gizmek card, we can summon something like the Gizmek and our Ancient Gear Dark Golem, link them off into Ballista, get our search with Ballista, and then use our Gizmek card in the graveyard to special summon back our Dark Golem to go +2 from there. So fantastic card, it's good for going into other stuff as well, even just to get material on the field. This card allows you to build the deck very differently. You can run an Infinitrack engine if you want. You can run something like Ancient Gear Reactor Dragon and a Magical Hound, so you can go into a Synchro 10. There's so many different things you can do with this, so I think 3 copies is a must. Finally, the board breakers now. We have double triple Tactics Talent. Fantastic card. All 3 of its effects are fantastic. Drawing 2 cards is obviously very good, but even taking our opponent's monster, something like an Apollosa, can be very good. And if we think our opponent has a hand trap or something in their hand that can stop us, we can rip it out as well. As a going second deck, this card is very, very strong. Next up, double Lightning Storm. I think this can go into the side. You're not really going to use this to clear your opponent's monsters, mainly their back row, but I do think this can be a side deck option. The deck can struggle into Floodgates, so it's a good way to get rid of Floodgates. However, the effect to destroy all your opponent's attack position monsters can be a double-edged sword because you do need your opponent to have monsters on the field to activate stuff like your Ancient Gear Tanker and your Urgent Schedule. Something to consider. I think it's alright in the main deck, but I think it can be sided in as well. And finally, triple Forbidden Droplets, one of the best board breakers in the game. We generate so many resources that I think that you're always going to have cards in your hand that you can use Droplets for to negate your opponent's effects. It lowers their attack and it keeps them on the field, so it's a great way to go for OTKs. So I think triple Forbidden Droplets is a fantastic option. Finally, 1 called by because we want our combos to go off. And 1 Ancient Gear Duel, which is the new Ancient Gear Trap card. It makes your Ancient Gear Golems and monsters that mention them unaffected by monster effects that your opponent controls. Also, if your opponent controls a monster, you can fusion summon a monster that mentions Ancient Gear Golem by banishing fusion material from your field or graveyard, including the Ancient Gear Golem. And that fusion summon monster can make up to 3 attacks that turn. So this is your main way for going for OTKs. You You'll usually go into your Ultimate Integer Golem because your Chaos Integer Giant does not mention Integer Golem in its text, but Ultimate Integer Golem has 4400 attack, can be boosted up to 5k with your Integer Tanker, can attack 3 times, you'll almost always OTK with this effect, and worst comes to worst, it does protect your monsters from monster effects, so 1 copy is very good, and the main way you're going to activate this on your own turn is to use your Integer Commander, which can activate this from your hand. Onto the extra deck now, we have 1 Chaos Ancient Gear Giant, needs 4 Ancient Gear monsters as material, can attack all your opponent's monsters, is unaffected by spell and trap card effects, 4400 attack, does piercing, during the battle phase your opponent cannot activate monster effects, it's an insanely strong boss monster, even going first, preventing your opponent from activating effects in the battle phase, completely shuts down decks like Tenpai, so if you summon this and make it to battle phase you're almost always going to win the duel. 1 copy is good enough because Ancient Gears are at a point now where we only need 1 copy of each monster because we're really going for the OTK on the first turn. You can run 2 if you want, but I think 1 copy is more than enough. Next up, 1 Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem. So specifically needs Ancient Gear Golem and 2 Ancient Gear monsters. This is your new OTK maker. It can be boosted up to 5k with your Tanker, can attack 3 times if you summon it with Ancient Gear Duel. If it attacks, your opponent cannot activate spells or traps until the end of the damage step. And if it's destroyed, you can special summon an Ancient Gear Golem from your graveyard. So it's good to see Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem actually getting use now. It is your main OTK card in the deck. Sometimes Chaos Ancient Gear Giant is better, but most of the time Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem is going to be your main way of winning duels. Next up we have Ancient Gear Megaton Golem. Needs 3 Ancient Gear monsters. It does mention Ancient Gear Golem, so you can fuse into this to attack 3 times. Doesn't come up very often, but it is an option you can do. If you're ever in a situation where you don't have access to an Ancient Gear Golem, this is generic enough where you can actually summon it using Ancient Gear Fusion. Depending on how many Ancient Gear Golems you use as fusion material, it can attack that many times. It does not stack with Ancient Gear Duel, however, so at most this will only be able to attack 3 times. However, if it leaves the field by your opponent's card effect, you can special summon Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem from your extra deck ignoring summoning conditions, so in certain scenarios this might be a good option. But out of all the Ancient Gear monsters in the extra deck, I think you can cut this one if you want to. Next up, Ancient Gear Howitzer, best card in the game, needs 2 Ancient Gear monsters. During your main phase you can burn your opponent for 1000, which can come up to help you get enough damage on field to OTK, unaffected by your opponent's card effect, so it is difficult for your opponent to get rid of. And if it's destroyed, you can special summon an Ancient Gear monster from your deck, ignoring summoning conditions. It has many good applications. In certain scenarios you can use this to go into your Ancient Gear Ballista. You can even swing this into one of your opponent's monsters, destroy it, and then special summon an Ancient Gear monster from your deck. And it's also a level 8 which can come up for our Xyz in the extra deck. Onto the Xyz, we have 1 copy of Dingirsu, makes our OTKs so much easier. It requires 2 level 4s, which is very easy because a lot of our main deck monsters are level 4. You can attach 2 material to apply one of these effects. You can either draw 2 cards, discard 1, you can target one monster you control and double its attack until the end phase, or you can special summon 1 monster from your graveyard in defense position. They all have downsides, so once you activate the effect you want to win on that turn, obviously the most important effect is doubling one of your monster's attacks. So if you have your Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem on the field, you can activate Dingirsu, target your Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem, double its attack 3 times with 10k, and you're always going to OTK from there. Next up, Bagooska. If you're going first and you don't have much else, going into this can help because it can help you survive a turn, and then you can OTK on the following turn. Next up we have Dingirsu, 2 level 8s, all of your Ancient Gear Golems are level 8, your Howitzer is also level 8, so it's not too hard to go into. On summon it's a non-target banish, which can be helpful in clearing some of your opponent's problematic monsters. You can replace this with any level 8 Xyz or anything else, but I like this as an option in the deck. And finally we have 1 TY-PHON. TY-PHON is just a great card for going second. If you need that extra little push at the end of your combo, you can go into this using any monster with the highest attack. It prevents your opponent from activating monster effects of monsters with more than 3k attack. You can also attach a material to bounce a card, so it's a great card in going second decks. A bit situational in this deck, but I think it's a good option to have in your back pocket, so 1 copy is very nice. Onto the links now, we have 2 copies of Ancient Gear Ballista, needs 2 Earth Machine monsters. On summon you can add a Geartown or an Earth Machine from your deck to your hand. So this can add you a Geartown that you can destroy to special summon more monsters, or it can add you any Ancient Gear monster. If you add something like Ancient Gear Box, that can help you search another Ancient Gear monster, so you get more material. It has another effect that helps your OTKs where you can target 1 card you control and 1 monster your opponent controls, destroy the card you control, and turn your opponent's monster's attack and defense to 0. This can help you go for OTKs by lowering your opponent's monster's attack, and can also pop something like a Geartown, which then can summon any monster from your deck. 2 copies is more than enough for this deck. Next up we have IP Masquerena, Nightmare Phoenix, and Nightmare Unicorn. Little Nightmare package here. If you're going first, this really helps with the IP because you can summon your Phoenix or your Unicorn on your opponent's turn. Phoenix can help you get rid of certain back row, Unicorn can spin things, and these are good ways to link climb into the final monster in the deck, access code, an alternate way to win the duel, good for popping a lot of cards, and can help clear the way for your Ancient Gear monsters. So that's it for my new and improved Ancient Gear deck profile. I'm very happy with the new support. I think this deck is so much better now. Almost all the problems that Ancient Gear suffered from before have been addressed with the new support. It is such a stronger deck now than it used to be. I do think this deck has a lot of room to improve. I think there's a lot of unique things you can do. There's a lot of Earth Machine support that could go very well with this deck. Even stuff like the Vernisif engine might be very strong. So I will be experimenting a lot, and you will see a lot more Ancient Gear content from me in the future. If you want to see some Ancient Gear combos, I did make a combo video a few months ago. However, I will be making an updated combo guide very soon, so keep an eye out for that. Thanks for watching, let me know what you think in the comments, and stay tuned for more Ancient Gear content.